Good evening, everyone that's watching, and welcome to our first online Colchester Digital. Thanks for coming along. And as it is our first online event, we'll ask you to be a bit patient with us because we're getting used to the software. And yeah, even though a few of us are techies, I think that might be this might end up being an embarrassing part of our careers. But so a little bit of background to this evening. Obviously, in the current situation, we could not go ahead with our planned conference in May, and we hope that all of you are doing well at home or at work if you're still working. Most of us are all working from home, and we had a chat about how we can best make the best of the situation. And all 16 speakers have said that they would be interested in doing the event online. So that's essentially what we're going to do. So this is the first of those events. We had 16 speakers lined up. So this should keep us going till November, I think. And we also had to think about the format, and all of us have been in a few of the Zoom type meetings where everyone's on video chat, and we all like those. So we will be doing some of those as well, but not to replace our meetup. So for our meetup, we're going to do them as a broadcast, and hopefully, fingers crossed, when we get back to doing them in real life, we will be broadcasting them as well. So we're going to try and learn how we can live broadcast our regular meetups. So I'm really looking forward to that. However, if people want to have Zoom type meetings, what I'm currently doing is inviting members one by one to our Teams group, and you will be able to speak to 2 or 3 people and say, hey, why don't we have a meeting? And you can have a video meeting that way, just in a casual manner. But we will also be arranging some as well. So a few of our members have offered to do code tutorials, which you can all join in. So it'll be a little bit like our hackathon in October. And a few people have offered to do demonstrations as well and training. So as a group, I think in a way this has given us a bit of a kick to make use of all the fantastic technology that we have at our fingertips and make this more exciting. We have 2 speakers this evening. The format's going to be exactly the same as we do when we do it live, and it's 2 speakers on a theme. So it's going to be considering context in communication, which obviously at this moment in time is something that all organisations are dealing with. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to have a 10-minute talk, and during the talk we'd like you to take advantage of the question and answer part of this application. So you all should have a Q&A window that you can open and send questions. It is moderated, and Kerry Cole, who runs the event with me, and Matthew Chick, who runs the event with me, are both keeping an eye on the questions coming in, and we will pick questions and those will be put to the speakers and they will respond to those questions in due course. So we will have Kim Moore first and then Tom Broom second, and there will be 10 minutes after each talk. We should finish around 7:20. If there's an appetite for it and there are a lot more questions, then maybe we'll continue for another 10 minutes, but we will finish at 7:30 the latest. This is all new to us, as I say. We're giving it a try, and we'll see how we go. So I'm gonna hand over to Kim. So if you bear with me on the technical front here. Right, okay, yeah, I think we seem to have everything ready. So Kim, are you ready there? I should be able to hear you.
I'm ready.
Fantastic, sounds really clear. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Kim Moore. Thanks very much, Kim.
Thank you, Dean. And so I'm here to have a little chat with you about the importance of being careful about what you say right now. I'm spending virtually most of my time every day and into the evenings helping people figure out what to say. There's a number of different approaches that you could take. Some people are going very quiet, some people are getting very chatty, and there's just about everything in between. And I'm sure we've all seen some examples of some good communication and some poor communication. So that's what we're going to chat about tonight, is really the importance of being careful about what you say right now. And context is absolutely critical. And just a quick question. So Carrie, if you can help me out with this, can I just ask everybody to post a comment, either yes or no, to a simple question. Do you feel that right now with your work that you have a communications role? So either yes or no. Any answers coming in, Carrie? No. Okay. Brilliant. So we'll take a look at that in a bit. I'm just curious to gauge how many of you feel that understanding how to communicate is important in your role, because I can always adjust how this goes based on the role that you have in your work. Carrie, are you able to give a percentage of who says communications does not apply to their role? Am I going to be able to hear? Okay.
We've got a few people saying yes, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people saying yes.
Okay, so that means that there are people saying no.
And 2 no's to come.
2 no's. Okay. So one of the biggest message that I want to get across through this conversation about being careful about what you say is I believe that we all have a role in communications, every single one of us. So if you are a writer, your role is clear and obvious. Everyone expects you to be the words person putting the messages out. If you are a graphic designer, perhaps, or a web designer, any visuals that you create help to convey a message. So you play a big part as well. Perhaps you're a developer that's building a system or putting something live on a website. Do you play a role in communications? I think absolutely you do, because you're the one that presses publish, and although you might not be responsible for what's on the page, you still have a responsibility to perhaps see what's on the page before it's published. And I think that's really important to consider right now, because our roles are changing as employees are furloughed. Sometimes there's a number of us who tend to take on additional responsibilities. So that's why I think it's quite common that right now, communication could be just about part of anybody's role, not just in your day-to-day work, but perhaps in posts that you put on LinkedIn, conversations that you have with people. Everything that we say right now influences how somebody might feel. So therefore, it's really important to be careful what you say. One key thing that was said in the Queen's speech, I don't know if you heard it, obviously she plays a very important role. You might agree or disagree with that, but she spoke some strong words, and at the end of her message, she left us all with this feeling, a question to consider is, how do you want to be remembered during this time? And as you see what's on social media, you can see how people are communicating, and how you communicate creates a lasting impression. So always consider, how do you want to be remembered right now? So for those of you interested in this topic for marketing and communications purposes, I have a list of things for you to consider so that when you are creating your comms and pushing your messages out, there's some key things that I'd like you to take away and to consider when you're crafting your messages. So the first one is word choice. Words have power. They always have, and word choice has always been important. But I think right now we're feeling how important they are, because everything that we say or do is noticed so much more, and that's simply because of the context and the environment that we're living in right now in the middle of a pandemic. So if you consider a simple word choice, something like the word lockdown, how does that make you feel? How many of us like being in lockdown? It's a pretty tough word. But you can try to have a positive influence by changing that language. And it was actually a snippet that I saw from Tony Robbins, where instead of the word lockdown, he's using the word grounded. How many of us have tried to de-stress and become more grounded? That's always been a very, very positive word. And in many ways, slowing down, it's all part of being grounded and finding a much calmer place in life. So that could be a word that you use instead of something like lockdown. So lockdown, negative, grounded, positive and wonderful. So word choice really, really does have an impact. So before you send any messages out, even if it's in a text message or a message on social media, take time to consider those word choices and what you've conveyed in that message. Another tip is think about the language that you use and use plain language. I've always been an advocate of plain language. It just is easier to read, it's easier to understand. But right now, what I'm noticing is that I think in the rush to push communications out, we're trying to say too much all at once. Keep language simple and plain. Consider even one topic at a time or one point at a time, because I don't know what your day-to-day life is like, but I'm sitting here, this is in my kitchen. My children are coming and going all the time. I'm juggling my kids and cooking meals with taking calls from clients, emails coming in. There's so much going on. So when you push a message out, think about keeping it plain and simple, one thing at a time, because it's so much easier to understand things when it's one thing at a time. The next point is context. Now, context is obviously our topic for tonight, and I think it's an absolutely critical one. And what I'm doing at the moment is every week I'm considering how things feel before I start any work, before I plan it, before I write anything, because things are changing so quickly from one week to the next. Look how much has changed in the last 3 weeks. And how people are feeling changes quickly as well. So this week has felt quite somber and quiet, whereas last week felt quite panicky with people reacting and doing things quickly. So if you sort of take the temperature of the environment and how things feel and try to map that to the mindset of your audience, how might they be feeling right now? And adjust your communications to tap into how they might be feeling to make things a little bit more accepted by your audience so that you're better able to connect with them. And the last point that I'm going to make is it's not just about words. Whatever message you push out, consider your behavior first. I think behavior has got to come before words. So behave in a way that embodies your purpose. So what is it that you want to be communicating? And if you lead with your purpose, then it just makes it so much easier to know how to behave and what to say. For an example of that, if I use myself as an example, everything that I'm doing right now is to demonstrate good communication, to help people understand what to communicate right now, communicate at a time when sometimes we're lost for words and we don't know what to say. So everything that I'm doing at the moment is about communicating, hosting online meetings, pulling people together in communities and offering support. Everything that I'm doing is about being helpful. And I think now is a time to, make sure you're leading with your behavior and the behaviors that communicate what it is that you're trying to say. And then it'll make it so much easier for any words that you put out to be believable and for people to connect with, because they always see what you do. They don't necessarily always listen to what you say, but they will see what you do. So I hope that helps give you some thoughts on how to be careful about what you say. If there's any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. I think that's my 10 minutes, Dean, Kerry.
Yeah, well done, Kim. That's great. Thank you very much. I'm just having a look through to see if anyone's asked any questions. I think Kerry's having a look as well.
I had some examples of good communications and one good, one bad, and one funny one. I just haven't shared my screen to show those. But yeah, I'm sure we've all seen lots in our feeds right now on social media. I mean, who hasn't seen something bad?
Are you okay to share those, Kim?
I can try.
Yeah, we need to see the bad one, definitely, and the funny one.
Okay. Okay, so we go into presentation mode. Okay, the Queen, we don't need to see her. Okay, so this one, have you all seen the communication from the National Cowboy Museum? Now this is a really good example of somebody who doesn't normally do social media. He's the head of security and now he's in charge of the social media feeds. And you can see a number of posts that he's put where it's literally, thanks, Tim, send. This is a good one. It's a great one. Shows the Guinness brand and conveying a good message. I thought this was absolutely lovely. And this one, I'll let you just read this one. I have taken away the name so you can't see who this is. Okay. So this one, obviously, this is a salesperson who's just desperate to sell a product. Yeah, they've got a product and it's a good product, but I'm not sure that he's doing the brand any favors with the words that he's put on his post. I'm struggling with my screen here. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm struggling with sharing my screen and getting through all the things. But those are just some examples to show you some of the various things that I've seen out there. it's hard to do this without the interaction.
We have had a question in, Kim, from Ben. When you have a team homeworking, it is difficult to strike a balance between being supporting, mindful of everybody's well-being, also the need to get shit done for the business's survival. How do you balance this?
I think having open communication with your team is absolutely critical to understand their mindsets and the pressures that they might be feeling, which might impact your ability to hit your deadlines on time. And I think as a team, now is the time to be more supportive of one another and to lean on each other more, to ensure that any work that you do, somebody is in the right frame of mind to do something to their best abilities. And if somebody's feeling the pressure to hit deadlines, then what can others do as a team to help relieve some of that pressure? I think you can always also look at it from the perspective of, we've always had a lot of shit to get done. I don't think that's changed. I think the pressures are still there. I think that also it's maybe looking at the pressure that you're feeling right now and that rush to get things done quickly. Do we really need to get them done as quickly as you're feeling you need to get them done? I think, especially in the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of panic to do a lot of things and to do them fast. And I think if you consider the context of what's happening in the market and how people are feeling, is the rush really as essential as you think it is? Or is it just that feeling of stress that you're under to get things done? We're not going anywhere fast right now. So I think the only time pressures at the moment really are, in the last couple of weeks, has been on the financials in terms of dealing with cash flow forecasts and making decisions about what you need to be doing with your employees, how you need to be taking care of them, decisions around furloughing versus who's working on what. That's maybe where the time pressures have been quite hard in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure that will carry on for a little while longer. But in terms of pressures to push work out the door, I think I just take a step back, slow down and think, you know, are these realistic deadlines? Do we really need to push them out as fast as we do? And maybe you do. And if you do, then I think that's where it comes back to communication with the team, seeing how everybody feels. Because you have to communicate and you have to take care of your team. And when you do, you're bound to get more work done faster to a better standard.
Great, thanks, Kim. We've also had a question from Ollie. So as consumers, we're still receiving corporate comms from larger brands, particularly via email, about their stance in the midst of COVID-19. Do you think this is becoming a bit tired and forced, feeling like they should say something, as opposed to actually reassuring consumers and having a purpose behind it? Is it best not to say anything as opposed to falling into this category?
Yeah, I think in many instances they're sending it out because they feel they have to send it out. It comes down to the purpose behind every piece of communication. Does it serve a purpose? So there might be some instances where some of those communications are critical because it's about service deliverability. So in that case, yes, they have to inform their customers about changes that are being made and keeping them abreast of changes. I think that's important. But if somebody is sending a message from the CEO because it's the CEO that wants to say something because they feel they need to say something, then probably purpose behind that communication piece is lacking. But I don't think going quiet is the right thing. I think they just need to stop and reassess what communications are needed. What's the purpose behind them? And I think I've got some things that I look at on a daily basis when I'm writing comms. And these are the things that I think brands need to do. And the first one is to take care of their people. Right now is absolutely critical. So comms around showing how they're taking care of their people, but actually demonstrating that with their people, I think is really essential. Comms that are useful and showing a brand being useful. So that might be through products that they have that are really essential right now and helping in some way or another, or it might be services that they're offering that are actually really, really useful right now. So I think those comms are really important to get out, and communications that are inspiring. That's another thing that's in short supply of right now. So find a way to send out communications that are inspiring, but make sure it relates back to your purpose. So if you're in an industry where you teach people how to wash their hands, and talk about washing your hands, but if that's not your brand's purpose and what you do, then why talk about it? That's, you know, there has to be a purpose behind the comms, but you can be inspiring through your comms. So those are the things that I think brands need to be thinking about when they communicate right now. Questions done?
Hey Kim, I've got one question for you. I just posted it, but I'm going to ask it as well. For small firms who just really struggle for time and for people to do this, if they have to pick one, should they focus on their website, messages up on their website, which are not very interactive, of course? Should they focus on email, which is a bit less cold, shall we say? At least people can respond to it. Or should they focus on social media, where they can be in exchange, they can have, you know, they can respond to questions quite quickly? And this is small firms that are short of time.
I think I would choose the communication channel where my customers are and how my customers like to communicate. So if your customers are used to going to your website because that's a normal behavior for them, because you service them in that way, then choose the website. If they're very interact a lot with you on social media, use social media. Maybe it's actually picking up the phone, especially for small businesses who have close relationships with their clients. Maybe it's doing online meetings where you invite a group of them together so that you're able to reach more of them at once. That's something that I'm finding and helping people to facilitate. Just organizing meetings where they're getting their customers together and doing question and answer sessions at once so that they can speak to a lot more people at once. So that's a really good use of time and a good way of reaching out and connecting with people and pulling them together and as a community, really. I think it's something that we're all needing at the moment. So there isn't one specific answer because every business is different. So just communicate in the way that your customers like you to communicate, because they'll be more receptive to it that way.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Kim. Kim, thank you very much for agreeing to talk tonight as well. I know at the moment we're all under a lot of pressure, and obviously, you know, we all talk to each other and we know that we're all having our own personal battles at the moment with balancing work and home life. So thank you very much indeed. This does feel very odd, I have to say, because normally we have a round of applause for our speakers. So if you want to do a round of applause at home for Kim, thank you very much. And I'm going to swap over to me for a minute because we've got our next speaker coming up. But hopefully, as I say, we're going to start to arrange some. We're going to start to arrange some talks in the meetup channels, and I'm going to put some special channels in there for different topics. So we might have a design channel, we may have a code channel, we may have a marketing channel, but as with everything Colchester Digital, this is all going to be decided by you. So I will be nagging a lot of you to give me an indication of what you'd like to do. But yeah, I think in between our monthly meetup, it would be great to all get together online. Anyway, I'm going to be in danger of running over time. And again, I've got to say thank you to our next speaker, Tom. We've had a conversation about this talk a few times now that Tom's about to do, because most of the people in our industry, let's be honest about it, really struggle to communicate in the technical industry with our non-technical audience. So I'm so grateful to Tom for doing this evening. I'm going to hand over now. Hi, Tom.
Hi, that's with me. Yeah, thank you very much, Dean. Yeah, thank you to Kim as well. I think that was it was really insightful, actually. I think two things that jumped out for me, that kind of striving for more inspirational comms, I think is something that we're all going to be looking at in the next kind of weeks and months. So how easy that's going to be, I don't know, but I think exactly as you say, guiding it by your brand's purpose is yeah, a really good place to start. So yeah, I think that was a really good talk. Interestingly, Dean, the talk that I am going to give now, and I'm probably going to share my screen so we can see the PowerPoint. Let's see if we can do that easily enough. No, you'll have to tell me. Can you see that?
Yeah, I'll get that up on the screen for you.
Cool.
Bear with me a moment. And I'm going to make that live for you now. There you go.
Lovely. Cool. Thank you very much. Yes, as I was saying, the talk that we first discussed around kind of making the technical accessible, which is a talk that I know some of you will have heard before, has evolved slightly. So as soon as we changed the title and the idea to be about effective ways to share technical content, I thought about how that actually has manifested itself in the situation we find ourselves at the moment. And what that said to me is that there are a couple of kind of key areas we should be focusing on, and maybe a lot of the previous content we looked at about kind of looking at sales and marketing and how you promote your services and your software isn't necessarily going to be as relevant now as perhaps it was even 2 or 3 months ago. So a slight change, but hopefully you'll be able to take some useful things away. So yes, as it says there, hopefully on your screen, if it is sharing in the way it should. The title for this is The Effective Ways to Share Technical Content. My name's Tom, for anyone who doesn't know. I'm the Creative Director at Creative Quills. Very short kind of intro into what we do. Typically, we help organizations position their brands with strategic content marketing. This will usually mean planning out kind of long-term campaigns, building that around the objectives of our clients, and focusing it at really kind of defined audiences. In the current climate, that's shifted slightly, and the way we're focused on supporting our clients has changed. It's shifted, and we are doing a lot more around internal comms, which is going to be partly what I talk about today. So helping our clients to better communicate between teams and their employees and the people who are now working remotely within the organization, and also remote training as well. So actually, even while you can't go into the office, there's still this ability to have this kind of ongoing learning, which I think is something that we're all rediscovering and learning new things and trying to be trying to make sure that this time is maximized without trying to stress ourselves out too much. So we've worked with a lot of tech companies, and now more than ever, what your technology or your service does is just absolutely critical. More and more technology is being utilized, and it's having to be understood and implemented very, very quickly. And so being able to communicate what you are doing is in a clear and concise way is absolutely critical. So moving forward, if that's going to allow me to do that. Again, Dean, can you let me know, has that gone to the next slide? Is that all working?
Yeah, it's working for me. Yeah.
Perfect. Right. Before I start rattling on. So yes, two things I want to have a quick look at, and these are things that we are, our clients, a lot of our clients are doing, a lot of the organizations we're working with are focusing on, as opposed to, as I say, the more general sales and marketing message. So for them, it's about sharing technical content with their clients, the people that they are working with already, and it's also about effectively communicating with their internal teams. Lovely. So sharing technical content. What I've got up here at the moment are some stats that I know anyone who's seen some of my previous presentations will have already come across, but I still think they're valid in what we're talking about today. From the Federation of Small Business, we have a quarter of small business owners lack confidence in basic digital skills, and less than half of smaller businesses have used cloud services, online data storage, backup, file transfer, etc., etc. I use these as examples to show that the market isn't confident, it's not fluent, and it's not experienced using technology to the level that a lot of you listening today will be. If they don't have these basic skills and they're not able to move quite quickly to implement them, then how can you ask them for advanced skills? How can you ask them to pivot and focus on using the technology that you're offering, or the service or software that you're offering, in a way that is completely different to what they may have been doing for the last 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is? Now they're having to do something remotely. It's not something they can sit with someone in the office, maybe a technician who can guide them through it. They're having to do this on their own, and that can be quite a scary place. We're finding this especially with our clients who have quite a flexible product, who can offer more, or who can offer something slightly different. What they are needing to do quite quickly, as well as people are assessing budgets, trying to understand exactly where they need to cut the money that they're spending in this area, they're needing to be really quick off the mark in explaining why their product is still valuable, how it's going to help with productivity, and how you're actually not upselling something to them in terms of maybe different functionality or different things that your software can offer, but instead you're just pivoting. You're offering a slightly different way of using the service, of using the software, so that you remain relevant, and you give them an excuse to want to continue working with you. So yeah, really it's about understanding and communicating how what you're offering can be adapted and how you can remain valuable within that business. Another thing that we've noticed as well, as I say, with a lot of businesses and organizations assessing their budgets, and we're a company who's been doing the same, it's really a case of oh, sorry, that's gone a bit odd. Sorry, bear with me 1 second. There we go. Yeah, a lot of clients will be expecting, and organizations will be expecting, their service providers to come to them with solutions. It's not up to them to go knocking on the door of their service providers and saying, look, we thought about this at length, and we want to do this slightly differently. We want to implement this. We want to make sure that this is working for our remote workforce. They haven't got the headspace to do that. There is so much going on for the people who are likely to be buying and using and selling your software and your services, that they don't have the headspace. It's much easier just to cull and then just keep bringing back everything that maybe they have been offering, and not seeing the potential for how what you're doing can make their lives easier. So there is a new dynamic. We're all aware of it. We're all living through it at the moment. So what we need to understand is how you can continue to support under these new circumstances. So let's make sure that we're communicating that in the most effective way that we possibly can. So moving forward, we also are going to talk about how you communicate with your internal team. So this is something that there's been such a sudden shift in remote working, and some people are adapting to it easier than others. Even after 3 weeks, I think we're coming up to 3 weeks in, are we? It's a really steep learning curve, especially if it's not something that you've done before. I think for a lot of freelancers, of course, it's something that is part of their life, but for people who are used to getting up and going to the office and having perhaps people who are managing them there, or the people that they're managing there, it's really quite difficult to navigate. And as I say, that's both for employers and kind of management level, but also employees as well. So ideally, what all parties want to be able to do and have wanted to do is to get settled as quickly as possible into a new routine and retain as much of the kind of connectedness as possible as well. So to make sure that you're not feeling cut off and adrift, that you are still part of a team, that you are still able to communicate and be productive with what you're doing. And a lot of that has involved technology and SaaS solutions, and they are being implemented not just at a volume that hasn't been seen before, but at a speed as well, where lots of people, lots of organizations are expecting their workforce to pick things up immediately and run with them and retain exactly the level of productivity that they would have had sitting at their desktop, sitting opposite their colleagues. So getting up to speed really quickly is difficult, especially when you combine that with everything else that's going on. We're looking at this through the scope of work and what you are doing in that area, but you've also got to take in social distancing, self-isolation, the lockdown, the kids being off school, the supermarkets rationing the food. There is so much going on at the moment that getting up to speed quickly on a piece of software is can be difficult to do. It can be difficult to find the time and the headspace to be able to do something like that. So again, what we've been encouraging our clients to do and what we've been helping them to do is to create content or collate together content that can help with this transition to a new way of working. So an example here, we use a project management tool called Asana, and something that they do is offer webinar training. So there's a huge amount of webinar content that's being released at the moment, as you will know. Yeah, I'm sure you've signed up to lots of them, but some of it's more valuable than others. But what you can do for your team members, what you can do as a manager, what you can even do as an employee for yourself and for your colleagues, is create a library of useful resources. This isn't necessarily about creating things from scratch, spending time, spending resource, spending money. There is a lot out there that is really good. So if you are looking to implement a new project management tool like Asana, then they have a resource hub that runs through all the various different functionalities. It helps you get up to speed really quickly with what you need to be doing. The good thing about it as well is it's a free resource, but equally you can book in at your own time and at the level that you feel comfortable with. So nobody gets left behind by kind of speeding through a training session, and nobody gets bored because you're covering things that you already know. So I've talked about Asana because that's the software we use, but I am sure the majority of the project management tools, for example, and lots of the other online software will be offering very similar things, so that actually all you really need to do is be collecting all of these together and then explaining to people within your team that these resources are available in their own time to be able to bring them up to what they would feel, a competent level. This is a guide that was actually shared with me that I really liked. I thought it was a great example. It was shared by Julia Payne from the Hub. Many of you within Queen Street will know who she is. It was something she sent as an email, and as the name suggests, it's a super easy guide to using Zoom. And I think we can all agree, video conferencing software, Zoom, WebEx I used the other day, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams that we're using today, it's just becoming so integral to the way that we communicate and interact with each other. And being able to understand it to, even to a basic level for some people is quite difficult if it's something that you've never come across before. What we can see here is that the guide is just really simply laid out. The language is really clear, and I know this is something that Kim spoke about just now, that keeping everything in plain language, keeping it simple, is really, really important, especially for these kinds of educational pieces of content. It won't have been that difficult to bring this together either, which is another tick if it is something that you want to be sharing with your team, and resource and time is short. But it can be really valuable, just giving people the tools that they need not to feel like they're being left behind, not to feel that they can't communicate. It gives people the option to be able to feel like, yeah, do you know what, this is something I can do. I can stay connected really, really easily. And from a management perspective, whether you're company director, manager, whatever it may be, it shows your team that you are thinking of them as well. You've created a resource that, as we say, helps them to feel connected, helps them to feel that they are, it's an easier way for them to manage the transition to the way they're working at the moment. Other ways that you could do this as a video, you could do it as an infographic. I guess it all depends on how interactive you want to make the content, and the kind, how your team best likes to engage with this kind of thing. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about clearly communicating expectations as well. This is just a template, as you can see, again using Asana just as a way of demonstrating what I'm talking about, but expectations it's something that's actually quite difficult when you're not in a room with people. There's a lot of body language that we read when you're sitting in front of someone. They may say that something isn't necessarily there isn't necessarily a deadline on it, or it's not as time critical as you think, but you can judge by the way you talk to people. You can judge by the way that they react to things that you say, and over time, especially when you've been working with your colleagues for a long time, you can make adjustments to the way that you work, the deadlines that you meet, in order to fit these kind of ways that we communicate with each other that aren't verbal. That is very, very difficult to do virtually. It's difficult to do over video when things are kind of juddering along, when you haven't got a clean video feed, or there's a delay in what you're saying. You can't pick up those kind of visual prompts. And so having a system like this in place is just incredibly important for managing that expectation. There is nothing left to interpretation here. This, as I say, is just a template, but we do this for all of our clients. We do it for all of our internal work, and we're quite lucky in that we had this kind of system in place before we were all asked to work remotely. And so we had a good understanding about how something like this could be implemented, despite the fact that we're in all over different parts of the continent. Other people aren't as lucky, but getting something like this in place now can really help when things do start to gear up, and you are in a position where you want to be maybe pushing more out, or being more productive when people do feel settled in what they're doing. So simple things like setting who the task is assigned to. You can see myself and my colleague Marika there are our little faces on each of the tasks. You can set due dates within it. You can comment, and we've been encouraging that as well. Make sure that we're talking to each other. Make sure that we're offering feedback, even if it's nothing more than a like, to say, that's something that I've enjoyed, if it's not something that you're directly responsible for. But I think in terms of clear communication expectations within a business, I think that's incredibly important at the moment. And so that brings us to the end. Two of the areas that we covered are sharing technical content with clients and effectively communicating with your internal team. Thank you very much. Now it is up to me to work out how I stop doing this. There we go. Cool.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. And again, a round of applause for Tom, first of all, so from me anyway. And have we got any questions, Kerry?
Yes, we have one.
So Jen has asked, have you found the initial implementation of a project management tool a bit painful? There's so much going on, it seems to be a massive task just setting it up.
Yeah, I do think that having those resources and having those tools that we had a look at earlier on. So again, as you know, I used Asana as an example. They have the ability for you to log into webinars, but then they also have various different resources in terms of videos. They have kind of tutorials that you can run through. I think a lot of these companies are making life much easier. These are new additions. There was also always a resource hub, but this kind of one-to-one webinar to run through basic training, that's software providers are adapting to the market and realizing that they are going to need to offer something else for exactly that reason, because people are struggling to get it off the ground quickly, and there is such a lot of choice as well. So if you can't offer an easy way or easy access to something, people will move on. If it's not Asana, it's Breeze, it's Monday, it's Slack, it's Trello. You know, there is so much out there that they need to be doing as much as they possibly can to help organizations and to help people engage with it as quickly as possible and be able to implement it as quickly as possible. So I guess, yeah, in answer, for us, it hasn't been difficult. The stuff that we've been using for the clients that we've been talking to, it has been more difficult the bigger the organization has been, for sure. But as soon as they've been able to feed through these kind of guides, whether they've created it themselves or whether they're using the resource that's provided to them, it has sped along the process for sure, rather than just leaving people to muddle.
Great. Yeah, we've got another one from Andy. He would like to know what any good free communication tools out there.
Communication in what sense, Andy? Now we wait for a reply. Yeah.
In terms of digital communication tools, Tom, what would you recommend? So I'm just thinking, you mentioned Trello, for example, in terms of planning, but in terms of external communications, can you think of any?
Well, I mean, I think if we're talking kind of broadly, then social media channels as a way of kind of digitally sharing your message are incredibly important. It allows you to obviously update people very, very quickly. I think, again, Kim has alluded to the fact that the type of message that we need to be sharing has changed, and is almost, I think it's almost changing by the week as well. So we are moving through different stages. It's almost like stages of grief, isn't it? You know, you are moving through these different areas of the way that people are just engaging with the situation, and you have to, I think, in marketing and when you're trying to communicate your message, you have to keep your ear to the ground, and you have to be incredibly attuned to that, to know whether people are ready to hear the next message along, the hopeful message, or whether there's still just the kind of chaotic message. And again, I think that's something that Kim alluded to.
So Andy's clarified, because you mentioned Asana as your example there. That's obviously a paid for communication tool. He's looking for examples like Asana, but are free.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, you know, Asana it does have a free version. So we've dabbled with the premium version, and actually at the moment they are, whether this is just for existing users, I think probably if you get in touch and ask, you would get of any of the deals. But I did get something through saying, I can't remember if it was 3 months or 6 months of free premium usage, just as a kind of to help you through the situation type thing. So the basic level of Asana, I think, is really good. We have used Slack before as well, slightly kind of different setup, if you like, but again, it's kind of a great way of just kind of managing conversations between people, but also keeping a good kind of record of it as well. It's really easy to go back through what you've been talking about, to add attachments, resources, anything that is kind of connected with that conversation, so that at any point you have created a library, basically, to easily go back and access all of that.
Sorry, Matt here. If obviously a really interesting subject, and actually something that we're just about to publish on LinkedIn is a list of tools that we use or our clients have used to do this kind of free communications, just digital tools to help you at the moment for if you're not already set up with all of these. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll post a link on there because it's just I guess a few videos showing some of the most commonly used ones that might help you sort of choose it.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. Yeah, let me know once you have, because it's a question that we're getting quite a lot. So I think in a lot of ways it's horses for courses as well. I did name a couple earlier on. You've alongside Asana, and I'm sure they'll be in your piece. You've got Slack, you've got Trello, you've got a whole host of different things. And what I would say is that Asana isn't the one that we originally landed on either. So take advantage of the 30-day free versions just to kind of test things out. I know, again, people feel that kind of time is of the essence and you want to get something in place really quickly, but it is critical that you put the right thing in place as well, and do your best not to kind of fit square pegs and round holes, and find something that fits the situation that you are in, the type of work, the ways that you want to communicate. So yeah, to Andy, I'd say it sounds as if we've got a good piece from Matt that's on the way. So keep an ear out for that.
And just following up really on that comment, Doug's question is, if implementing new project tools is a bit painful for some people, is there a case for maybe using existing familiar channels like Google Docs, Calendar, Skype, group email, etc.? Absolutely,
yeah. And I think I think a lot of what I've talked about there, if we're talking about this from a kind of rather than from a personal perspective, because yes, I think the answer is, of course, on a personal level, you should choose whatever you feel most comfortable with. But if we're talking about this in an organizational sense, and it's something that's coming from above, this is the software that we are going to be using, and then it's fed down. Communication is two ways. As well as it being really important that you communicate to your internal team, in an effective way, you need to listen still as well, and make sure that actually if they're telling you this is the kind of thing that we use regularly, or this is what we feel comfortable with, that you listen to that and then bring that into your thinking in terms of whatever kind of process you want to put in place. That was, listening is as important, was important, and is probably more important now, so that it doesn't just feel like a case of this is the law, and frankly there's nothing you can do about it because you can't see me. So I think make sure that if people are using Skype for their personal stuff, equally as the person working within the organization, just communicate that. Just say, do you know what, we're struggling with Zoom, or we're struggling with the other what else have we got here, Google Docs, we're struggling with the kind of alternatives to that. Could we consider using X? I think that is a kind of it's a mature way to go about it, and you would like to think that ultimately what people want is the most efficient and most productive way for business to continue, and they'll listen to that and take that on board.
Great, which actually comes on to the next question, which is from Ollie. With all this educational content around how to take your brand online, e.g. webinars and podcasts, do you think that it can be dangerous for brands' reputations to try these types of software at this time if they're not experienced with it? Or do you think it doesn't have to be polished as long as it's offering value?
I agree with Matt, who's replied that. I think that's a really good question. I think I personally would put value as first and foremost. I think a lot of what's going out at the moment isn't polished. And as I alluded to at the beginning, you will have experienced some really good webinar content, and you will have experienced some really bad stuff as well. But that can be both in terms of quality and quality of the software, but also the quality of what's being shared. And I think we're going to hit a settling down period as well. I think we've had the mad rush. I think we've had the saturation point of remote working. This is what we need to be doing. Top tips. Don't panic. And a real kind of outpouring of content. I think we're going to move to a stage now where, much as we do with any other kind of content, we are going to start to be more discerning with what we're spending our time on, and we are going to need stuff that just cuts through the fluff, that holds huge amounts of value. The same as if you were engaging with blog content, the same as, well, you've said podcasts there, the same as video content. You know, people's time is precious to them, and you've got to respect that. It is about respecting people. So I would say value comes above everything. I don't think it's necessarily bad for a brand's reputation if, you know, everything's a bit wobbly, because I think most people make allowances for that. What they won't make allowances for is the quality of what you're delivering. But again, you know, it's about you feeling comfortable as well. I think if you are presenting something, the same as if you were standing up to do a talk, or you were putting something out on social media that is a reflection of you and your thoughts and what you think, you will take time to really refine it. You'll take time to feel comfortable that that message is you, is actually what you want to be saying. And this isn't any different to that, really. If you feel confident and comfortable and, you know, in what it is that you're delivering and the way that it's been delivered, then that should, you know, I think people react positively to that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Kim, could I bring you in on the next question for you and Tom to both answer? I think we can't have you both on the screen, I don't think, but it'd be great to get your feedback to Ashley's question too, which is, what's your feeling when would be a good time to restart more sales and marketing again?
Did you want to? Yeah, I've been talking for a long time. Did you want to kick off, Kim? Oh, I think you're on mute, Kim.
Okay. I don't think there's a magic answer. I think life would be a lot easier if we all knew the answer to that question, which is why I'm looking at things on a weekly basis and just watching the temperature of what the atmosphere feels like. You have to understand the mindset of the people that you're communicating with and your audience, who you're selling to. Consider everything that's going on. I mean, definitely get things ready so you're ready to push your messages out. But also, I think, is what you're selling going to be needed? Does it need to be adapted? How will things change by the time you're ready to start selling again? So I think those are the things to be considering now in the ready to push and run with your offerings. No idea when we're going to be ready to sell again. It's just going to completely depend on what's going on out there. So just keep checking on a weekly basis, and you know, just keep your ear to the ground, listen to what's going on, listen to what's being said. Right now, it's all about selling essentials. That's what people are spending money on, if they're spending money, but also there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. So it comes down to, what are you selling? Is it needed? Are they ready for it? Those are the things you need to be assessing. And then when they are ready, how are they going to feel? How are they going to feel about those messages? So just make sure your messages are mindful of their mindset, how they're feeling, how they're thinking, what they're trusting. I think it's all going to be different.
Tom, how do you feel about that as well?
Yeah, I can agree more. I think the market will tell you, and I think actually it may change sector by sector, depending on, you know, what it is that you are trying to sell and who you're trying to sell it to. I think what we've seen recently is, and I'm sure if we, the example that Kim gave earlier, showed earlier, the kind of blunt messaging, if you like, about profiteering. I imagine if you followed that through social media, it got the response that they wanted, I suppose. But I bet you would find some quite damning evidence that that wasn't the way to do what they were doing. And I think I've seen some examples as well off the top of my head, it was on LinkedIn. I saw a solicitors who had done a deal for NHS workers on wills, and it was 50% off your wills, and it was good intentioned. And actually there was a piece of content that went with it that talked about their connection with the NHS, and it talked about, you know, work that they were doing, raising money, all that kind of stuff. But for the people who just saw 50% off for the NHS workers, who, as we know, are right at the coalface, who are dying, it just seems so callous, and it just seemed just incredibly misjudged. And LinkedIn went to town. And so I think that was probably for them quite a rude awakening. As I say, even good intentions can be interpreted in the wrong way. So yeah, just keep your ears open. I think use your existing network and test the water. You know, talk to your existing clients about maybe, you know, the different services, and maybe introduce, if you're doing something slightly different with them in the way we are, you know, it's an ongoing conversation about how we maybe reintroduce some of the things that we were doing previously. Clients who maybe have fallen off the radar as well, you know, people that you're close with, your colleagues, your connections. Just how do you feel about this message? You know, ask people for their quite open and honest opinion. You know, this I think is a really great forum for that. That if if one of us were to bring something to the group, I would like to think that everyone else would go, do you know what, Tom? No, I don't think people are ready for that. Or yeah, do you know what? That feels right. It feels like something that I'd want to engage with. So yeah, who knows? So much is unknown in all of this. So yeah, it's to the ground, I think.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Tom. Okay, so we've gone a little bit over time now, so I'm going to wrap it up. But first of all, thank you very much, Tom. A round of applause for Tom, and
thank you.
Fantastic talk, really appreciate that. And just for anyone watching who is interested, both Tom and Kim are based in Colchester, and you're probably all bored with me saying how proud I am of the fantastic talent that we've got in the town. Really, you know, I've spent a lot of time working in London in big firms, and honestly, we can match any firm in London. If you want, come and join some of our other meetups and you'll see. So thank you very much, Kim and Tom, for doing the talk this evening. Thank you very much for anybody that's attended. This is recorded, and my next technical task in my backlog is to work out how to get this live online for you to watch again and to share with your friends. But yeah, I'm going to say thank you very much to Kerry for doing the moderation, and Matt for helping the production as well. I am missing our live events, I've got to say. I forgot to have a beer with me now, so I'm going to go and get one in a minute.
I'm waiting for my pizza to arrive, Dean. I assumed you were sending me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so both Tom and Kim were due to speak at our conference. We had 16 speakers lined up. As I said, we've got enough to last till November. I will be doing messages to explain how people can meet up in our members room in Teams as well. But thank you very much all for coming, and I'm going to say good evening. Stay indoors, stay safe, and we will see you all next month, if not sooner, at some of these small meetups. So thank you very much all for coming.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.